This is Healthcare's Missing Logic podcast, episode number 152. Today, we're finishing up our 3-part caring series, and we're going to talk about caring for each other. A little bit of a love fest going on here, but we do share some insights that you won't want to miss, so stay tuned.
Welcome back to Healthcare's Missing Logic podcast. This is the only podcast that shows you how to leverage polarity intelligence, an essential competency for healthcare leaders, and the missing logic in healthcare, so you can create healthy, healing organizations and become a thriving, resilient, and unstoppable healthcare leader.
We are your hosts, Tracy Christofferson and Michelle Trosett. We've been best friends and colleagues for over 30 years. And during that time, we coached healthcare leaders across North America around how to create healthy, healing organizations.
Today, we coach healthcare leaders and leadership teams to live thriving, resilient, and balanced lives, combat burnout, and create the best places to give and receive care.
This podcast is for the unsung hero of healthcare, the healthcare leader. We want you to know we see you and we'll be here for you each week. In this podcast, we're going to challenge healthcare's industry norms, flip limiting beliefs, and share proven strategies so you can be your best self at work and at home, live and lead intentionally, and experience well-being and joy.
We are glad you are here and look forward to sharing the journey with you. If you aren't totally convinced this podcast is for you, just listen to a few episodes and convince yourself. Hello, everyone. It is Michelle and Tracy, and we want to say hello from Lake Michigan to the Pacific Ocean.
Hey, here we are. Back at it again. Happy to be here as always.
Yes. Number 3 in a series.
Oh, yes. We're doing a series and we're finishing it today, folks.
Mm-hmm.
So, we've been talking about being a thriving, resilient, unstoppable healthcare leaders, all about caring. And we've been doing a 3-part series on caring. And today we're going to wrap it up. We had the first was caring for self. The second was caring for others. And now today is about caring for each other. And, so if you haven't listened to the other 2, go back and catch those. They're really good.
They are.
They're awesome. So go listen to them.
So many good tips.
There are. And today is just going to be the crown on all of it, right?
The crown jewel. The crown jewel.
Other. Yes, the crown jewel. The icing on the cake.
Yes.
The dip to the chips, whatever you want to call it, right? That's what it's going to be. And, you might be thinking, okay, well, how is caring for each other different than caring for others? Actually, somebody asked us that. So we thought we should talk about that.
Let's do.
Well, the whole idea really for this series came up in this particular episode, came up because we were working with a group of healthcare leaders and we said, like, how are you guys caring for each other? And they were like, looked at us
what?
like, huh? What did you say? Like, how are you caring for each other? Like, we never thought about that. Like, we haven't been doing that, right? Like, and so it was just kind of foreign to them. We thought, well, this is a great thing to talk about on our podcast because maybe there's some others that are thinking that way too. And I think some of that may be, kind of a latent result of being in the pandemic and everybody being isolated and not being able to be together. And, and so then you don't think about how you can come together or how you, even if you can't be together physically, you can still support each other. Right. And so, it's just always beneficial to have a strong peer support group, a friend group, kind of a cheering squad for you, a place where you can go and be your, sometimes be your most vulnerable self. And you need, have that colleague or that certain friend that really you can, confide in and will support you and be there for you and do that for each other as groups as well.
So important.
So that's what we're going to talk about, how to do that today, folks.
Yeah. So We know that we all have heard the phrase or saying it's lonely at the top. And now you throw a pandemic and the different isolation that has happened on top of that, and it can be pretty lonely out there. We know people are feeling lonely. And the other thing that we've really noticed is that the new leaders are feeling lonely because they're kind of thrown in. Even before the pandemic, new management roles in healthcare, new leader roles, it's like, here you go, manage the unit, manage the department.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of stress and feeling isolated to navigate through anyway. And so it's not uncommon for healthcare leaders to feel alone. And I love the fact that this is being differentiated, the caring for others and the caring for each other, because there is that difference. And the leaders that have been isolated from each other, in different ways because of the pandemic, they haven't had management team meetings. They haven't had leadership meetings. They haven't been face-to-face. And so we know it's been drastically reduced. I think it's starting to change again, but there's still kind of this time of not caring for each other that has happened, that there's still a little bit of a hangover, I would say. So we have to be intentional. We have to be intentional to bring that back. And another element that can keep leaders separated or isolated is fear. Fear from being judged, fear from being vulnerable. Because, right now it's all about being the hero. It's all about being strong. And so there can be some fear associated with saying we need to care for each other, and maybe to be the first one to kind of put your hand out that this is really important, especially for newer leaders. We're very sensitive to the newer leaders right now.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people are moving around within their organizations too.
Yes.
And so you may not be a new leader, but you might be a new leader in a new area.
Yeah.
Right. In a new division or a new, care line. And so you might be new to that whole area, right? Not necessarily a new leader. Still, you're like, you don't have your people, right?
Right,
so
right.
That can make you feel isolated too, right? And, and I think what we're seeing, and if you're like many of the healthcare leaders we've been talking to, kind of been a little preoccupied with taking care of what's happening in your unit, right? Like, or in your area of, governance or whatever it is, right? Like whatever areas you're over, because there's been so many challenges with staffing and different things, right? And so you just trying to focus on your people, making sure they've got what they need, that the department's functioning, that, your unit's functioning, whatever it is, you kind of get a little preoccupied with those kinds of things. And just meeting the requirements of your role. That's your priority, right? And so you're not always prioritizing connections outside of that or with other people, or you may even pass up opportunities to be connected to other people because you're trying to just make sure you're focused on what you need to do and the priorities you have in your area. And sometimes we operate from circumstance too. We say, well, I don't have time for that. Like, I don't have time to connect with other people. I got lots of things to do. I'm not even leaving here till 8:00 at night. I don't have time to have coffee with somebody, right? And that circumstance, that's living by what we call living by circumstance. That's a story. And if it's not a priority, you won't make time for it, right?
Right.
So in our podcast today, we want you to, we're going to have you start asking some questions about how can you spend more time caring for each other as fellow leaders? And how can you care for each other just in your leadership teams, right? And really thinking about how can you deepen your relationships so you can care for each other as friends.
As friends.
Right? As friends, not just co-workers, but as friends, people with a different level of relationship, meaningful relationship.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we just want to acknowledge that we feel like we are so blessed that we've been friends for over 30 years and we've worked together for over 30 years. And we also have been blessed by being in environments and cultures where that was supported as well. So I guess number one, we know it can happen. We know it can exist. And we feel for people that have never experienced that. So the first thing is just know it's possible. It's absolutely possible. And I had to kind of just have I just had a big smile on my face when we planned and scheduled this series, and then we plot out, okay, when is it going to show up on the airwaves? This particular episode, Caring for Each Other, is airing on Best Friends Day. And you just need to know that was totally unintentional, or was it a coincidence?
For those of you who can't see her, she's winking.
So what a great day to have an episode about caring for each other to show up, and it's also Best Friends Day. So
yes,
this is important, and one of the things in our work that we've also uncovered when it comes to just employee engagement, and again, we do a lot of work on healthy work cultures, is Gallup. They have an engagement score, and one of their statements is actually about, do I have a best friend at work? And there was an article that Gallup published in 2018 about why we need best friends at work. And that just was like, wow, that's something to really think about, because there's a lot of people that I have met through my healthcare leadership career that would not believe that. But here's a research-based engagement survey that's been around for a long time, and for 30 years, this is something that they've studied, and they found that a few things. One, employees want more from their job than just a paycheck. Hello, it's kind of good when you love your work, and you work in a great culture, right? So we know people want more than the money. And even now, with all of the money issues with healthcare and staffing, it's not sustainable, because we know in the end, people want more than that. And they also found that work friendships increase productivity and engagement. I mean, it feels great to work with a great team and have those connections and those friendships, and you are more productive, and you want to show up for each other. You have each other's back. So there's a difference. There's a difference that happens with that. And then the third one was that culture determines whether friendships can naturally develop and thrive. So there you have it. The culture is important. You have to cultivate a culture that really welcomes good partnerships, friendships, healthy relationships, so that it makes caring for each other easy. It's easy to care for each other.
Well, I think there's a lot of, I think there's some limiting beliefs out there about relationships at work.
Yes, I agree.
Right. That many of us were indoctrinated. You don't bring your personal life to work. Right. Maintain, your boundaries in your relationships at work. And so I think a lot of that is, where people stray away from having friendships or having personal relationships. But you can have those and have boundaries. You can have a healthy friendship relationship at work and still have the appropriate boundaries from when you think about the hierarchical structure and the necessary things, right, to conduct business. You can have both. It's not an either or.
Well, that's the healthy part about it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But people don't know that.
Yeah,
right?
They don't. There's a lot of people that don't know that. So
yeah, they don't know that.
So there's a few things that we've learned about caring for each other over the years. And out of that experience and just knowing, that's how the dynamic balance effect framework kind of was birthed. It was like, how can we bring everything we've learned about being resilient, being healthy, having healthy boundaries, caring for each other, and put it as a significant part of this framework. And that is the dynamic balance effect framework. And when you apply it, it really helps to be that thriving, resilient, unstoppable leader. And so we help healthcare leaders combat burnout so they can make a difference. They can make it easier to care for themselves, care for others, and now the third one, care for each other. And so we'd like to share with you now how our pillars of mindful choices, polarity, intelligence, and personal alignment, and some of their core elements help to inform how to care for each other, and whether just the two of us or whether it's been our experience or being with another group, how we've applied these. So there's a lot to pack in that's packed into the dynamic balance effect framework, including the focus on relationships and how to up-level them, leveraging strengths. How do you leverage your strengths in order to care for each other? I mean, everything's connected. And also, your habits that you can bring to caring for each other as well. So there's a lot of different elements that we're going to share with you in our experience of caring for each other. So Tracy's going to kick us off by sharing some examples.
Yeah. So I think one of the things, it comes from our personal alignment pillar, really is staying connected around shared purpose. So, many of us have a personal purpose, but we also have shared purpose within our work, even within our families, right? There's a shared purpose. And I think staying connected around that helps us care for each other and our what we want together, what we collectively want to achieve and experience, and what we bring to that, right? So when we stay connected around that, it really helps us to support each other and bringing our contributions, leveraging our strengths, as Michelle said, right? Being connected around that is a way that we care for each other as well. And I think the other thing is engaging in activities where you can really get to know each other, right? Like get to know each other's stories. And this is about healthy relationships too, which is in one of our, which is in our pillar, mindful choices. And it's, when you really get to know somebody at a deeper level, right? Then the relationship changes. It's not transactional. It's actually transformational. And sometimes just learning somebody's story is a way of caring for them. And when you can understand them and where they've been and where they come from and how that's influenced their thinking today or their behaviors, right, then that enables you to care for them in a very personal way, a very intentional way, a way that they will respond to, right? A way that's meaningful for them, not just based on your own assumptions. The other is community. Michelle and I have been blessed to learn the lesson of the power of community and bringing like-minded people together that share a common purpose, that have, common interests. And this is really, again, this is kind of represented in our polarity intelligence pillar with the relationship and productivity polarity, because it's about both, right? It's about really connecting the community to be both productive and in deep relationship with each other to achieve that shared purpose. And so I think, having, and people are longing for that kind of connection and community right now. And that in community is when we can really care for each other.
Yeah.
Really get to know each other's needs.
And just to build on what Tracy said, that, connecting with each other, it starts with knowing each other. And that is one of the most powerful ways to get to know each other, is to really engage in meaningful dialogue, which is also part of our mindful choices pillar. And bring that intention, bring that safe place, bring the desire to really connect with someone at an inner being level. Like, who are you really? I'm not just looking at a body or someone physical, but really wanting to know that person that's sitting in front of you or across the table from you. And the other thing you can do is to be a gift giver and a gift receiver. So when you care for each other, we love to give gifts as a way. Giving gifts is a way of showing, hey, I care for you. And so we have gift closets. And it's good to have a closet full of gifts, let me tell you, because when something comes up, you have a gift. And the other thing that I've learned through the years is that if I'm out shopping, or I could be doing something, I don't know, I could be at a sports game or anything. If I see something and it reminds me of someone I really care about, I just buy it. Because I might not get back to the store or this place or this restaurant when I think, oh, so-and-so would love this, and I'm going to get him a gift card. So it's about kind of filling up your gift closet with different things so that when the opportunity arises, you have something to share. But it's also a polarity in that it's also important to receive gifts and caring for each other. It's not about giving. It's also about receiving gifts as well. And one of our coaches has a concept that we really have adopted. It's called surprise and delight. Like really catch people. They just had no idea you would think of doing something like that for them. So shout out to Patty Dominguez, because we like to surprise and delight each other, and we like to surprise and delight our clients as well. So it's a really powerful, fun, yet simple way to really show how much we care for each other.
Yeah. And I think, and I love what you say about the gifts, and what struck me too is it's really about the intention in the gift
Yes.
giving. When you give a gift that's thoughtful, right? That you've really thought, oh, this reminds me of you, or this reflects you, or, it says so much more to a person, right? Like it's the intention behind the gift more than even the gift. I think.
No, it is. You're exactly right. Exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah. So cool. Well, our call to action in this final episode of the 3 is to really, again, do a little bit more reflection on caring for each other at work. And in what ways have you experienced caring for each other? Like, just stop and pause. Who's cared for you recently, or how have you cared for others, right? Like, how have you guys been reciprocal in caring for each other, in the last, I don't know, maybe 3-6 months? Just think about, a certain time frame. And how has the pandemic impacted actions of caring for each other in your peer group, right? Have you been isolated from each other? Has it brought you closer together? I mean, that might be the case too. It's not always that you're isolated. It may have really strengthened your relationship if you have a good one, and you have been caring for each other. That's always a possibility as well. And then just ask yourself too, what's one relationship I can develop or strengthen at work that would be beneficial to me and the other person, right? So we can have a reciprocal relationship where we can care for each other and strengthen that relationship. How can you prioritize time on your calendar to be with fellow leaders and care for them? Again, caring for somebody can just be giving them your attention for 5 minutes, being present with them. It doesn't have to be, a big sacrifice, right? Or doing something grandiose. It can be just the little things. How could, you in a peer group surprise and delight each other? Like, what might be some ways you could surprise and delight your peers? Think creatively. And then what connection habits can you create as a group, right? As a peer group, as a group of colleagues in your organization? Like, I think we worked with one group, and they had a certain meeting that they all attended every week. And they decided after that meeting, they'd go and get a cup of coffee or hot chocolate, spend 5-10 minutes just connecting with each other, right? Checking in with each other. What do you need? Is there anything I can do to support you? And just connecting with each other at the human level, right? Not just as at the work level. And then how can you learn what support looks like for each other? Because support is different. What one person feels is supportive, somebody else may not. So, how can you learn what others need and what they believe is helpful or supportive?
Right. So we have a question for you. Wouldn't it be better to create a caring for each other philosophy or strategy in your life rather than just working at a demanding job and always on the go and then end up feeling lonely? So it's a worthwhile philosophy to think about. And if you don't, what can happen is you can become disconnected from your peers, from your colleagues that you work with. And it could be like insidious, like it doesn't happen overnight, but it can happen over time. And all of a sudden you're disconnected. You can feel alone, really alone in your work, alone in your world. and become totally unaware of significant things that are happening in the people's lives that you work with, or the lives of family members that maybe you've become disconnected with because you haven't been caring for each other. So I didn't even know that was going on in your life. Maybe you've had that happen. Or you could just have regrets that you lost opportunities because of that disconnection as well. So it's really important to think about sort of what's at risk here if we don't care for each other.
Yeah. Yeah. You might as well make the most of the time that you have with the people that you're with.
Yeah.
Right? That you share that purpose with, and just be intentional around, creating that environment, creating that circle of support, caring for each other.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels so good to be connected with other people that matter to you, right? And your peers matter to you. You're all have that shared purpose, right? You're connected around something that's bigger than any one of you. And I think too, give and receive cards and calls and texts, and like nothing lights your day up and you get a little thank you note, right? Or somebody just, puts a little Post-it on your computer, thinking of you today, just any little thing, like it just lights you up. It feels so good to be in an environment like that where you're surprising each other and just giving little gifts to each other and lifting each other up, right? Surprising and delighting and connecting around the things that matter most. And, that's what makes you want to go to work every day.
Yeah.
Right? That's, in addition to know that you're making a difference in the lives of many people, it's just being in that environment. Like Michelle said, we've been so blessed to work in environments like that and to help co-create them too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just pause and close your eyes for a minute. Don't do this if you're driving, of course, or operating heavy machinery while you're listening to us. But just pause and imagine, imagine walking into an environment like that every day. Imagine, connecting with your people, right? Feeling like you've got this strong support group, experiencing that surprise and delight and the respect that you've cultivated with each other. And, it's just, it's phenomenal. So just paint yourself a little picture of that and then go make it happen.
There you go. Easy peasy.
Sure. Well, you can have it if you want it.
Yeah. So we're going to leave you with one of our favorite quotes. Of course, healthy relationships is one of the cornerstones of our mindful choices. And it's also critical for polarity intelligence, healthy relationships, which is so connected to caring for each other. So we're going to leave you with a quote by Meg Wheatley. And she says, relationships are all there is. Everything in the universe only exists because it is in relationship to everything else. Nothing exists in isolation. We have to stop pretending we are individuals that can go it alone. And we need each other. We need each other in our families, as friends. We need each other in our work environments. And we know that thriving, resilient, unstoppable leaders, they know they can't go it alone. They know they need support and also that they need to care for each other.
Mm-hmm.
Very important.
Yes, we are.
I love you, Tracy.
I love you, Michelle. It's so important.
It is.
It's so important to take care of each other. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for being here and listening again today. And, to another episode of Healthcare's Missing Logic podcast. We just appreciate you. We're so grateful for all of our listeners. And this is the conclusion of our caring series. That was episode 150, 151, and 152. So if you haven't listened to the other ones, please go listen to them. You'll find them very helpful and informative and lots of tips. And just know that we care for you, our listeners, our faithful listeners, and even our new listeners. Yet to be faithful. We care for you too,
do.
Right? Yeah. And if you're new to our show, leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts, and share our podcast with a friend or a colleague that you think would get a lot out of it. And make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and kind of get some eyeballs on us, right?
Yeah. Send a YouTube link to a friend and surprise and delight them. check this out.
Yeah. Well, I thought about you when I listened to this. Definitely. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you next time. Stay safe, stay healthy, and take care of each other.
Yes, care for each other. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Healthcare's Missing Logic podcast, now a top-rated podcast for healthcare leaders. Please share this podcast with other healthcare leaders and anyone else you think would benefit. We are certain that if you found value in it, they will too. If you haven't already done so, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any episodes. And also, it would mean the world to us if you took a quick moment to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast player. It helps to get the word out about our podcast and incredible guests. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to watch our podcasts. You can also follow us on our Missing Logic social media channels, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Until next time.